Good morning and welcome to this morning's reflection. I'm sitting here in my study this morning and it's dark still, and I have a candle lit to remind me that Jesus is the light of the world and that he too expects us to be the light of the world. Our civilization today seems to not be working, in spite of the fact that we've made so many technological strides. You would think that with all that we know and all that we can do, we would be in a better place today. But it would seem that for one set of values, the values of hard work, respect for the land, simplicity, care, and stewardship, our generation has preferred another set of values, the values of profit, consumption, quick returns, short-term gains, and instant gratification. So we seem to be destroying ourselves at the hands of our very own success. The Sufis tell a story of a people searching for fullness of life. And an old teacher said to them, there are 3 stages in the spiritual life: the carnal, the spiritual, and the divine. The people asked him what the carnal stage was, and he said, that's when trees are seen as trees and mountains are seen as mountains. And then they asked him about the spiritual stage, and he said, that's when we look at things deeply, and trees are no longer trees, nor are mountains mountains. And so they asked him about the divine stage, and he said, that's when trees are trees again, and mountains are mountains again. We have much to learn from this story. In the past 200 years, we have seen a reversal of our attitude toward nature and our place in it. In 1940, people bought things and they expected those things to last them a lifetime. People saw trees as trees. If you used one, you planted another. You cared for the trees that you planted. Today, the things we buy and the trees we use to make the things that we buy are thrown away regularly, not because they've worn out, but because they are no longer fashionable. Today, trees are not seen as trees, or water as water, or land as land, but rather they are seen as a means to profit for the few, and we consider that an advancement. We must examine our theology of creation, and we must return to the ideas that saved Europe once a long time ago, and since then we have again abandoned those values that once saved Europe. In the 5th century, Benedictine monasteries were established, and the code by which they lived helped to save Europe at that time. The 5th century was a very, very, very bad time for Europe. The Roman Empire had collapsed. The countryside was in disarray. The roads were prowled by thieves. Towns were insecure and unserviced. life was unsafe, unpredictable, and undeveloped. People sat and starved on untilled land, or roamed and starved on abandoned roads as they searched for work and food in abandoned towns. Order was the thing of the past. Even the marketplaces were now closed. All the order that the Roman Empire had brought was gone. The monasteries brought hope and order to this chaotic world. They were established around the 5th century. They formed communities that were centered on God, seeking peace with all people, and living in harmony with nature. They were tied to the land. They had to farm the land to provide for themselves and for the communities that settled around them. All over Europe, it was the monasteries that restarted agriculture, replanting neglected lands and returning them to their former productivity. They provided schools. They provided hospitality for travelers. They provided a social center. They also began to produce goods for the local communities. So what did the people learn from these monasteries? What did they learn that enabled them to save a dying world? They were able to adopt a vision and a way of working and a way of living. They learnt a spiritual vision that gave life to the whole person. They learnt an attitude of life that affected all experience. They learnt humility, stewardship, manual labor, and community. They learned to be rooted in a community of praise. They learned to value all things. They gave honor and respect to all. Nothing was expendable. Nothing was without value. Nothing was without purpose. Nothing was without beauty and quality and good. So to take from the land and not replace it, to destroy without reclaiming, to have without enhancing, is to violate the covenant of life. That was what the people learnt from the Benedictine monasteries. And we need to return to these values. And I will continue tomorrow to look at more of what those generations long ago learnt that re-established and saved Europe at the time. Amen.